Had not Jacob previously repented of his sin in obtaining the birthright by fraud, God would not have heard his prayer and mercifully preserved his life. So, in the time of trouble, if the people of God had unconfessed sins to appear before them while tortured with fear and anguish, they would be overwhelmed. Despair would cut off their faith, and they could not have confidence to plead with God for deliverance. But while they have a deep sense of their unworthiness, they had no concealed wrongs to reveal. Their sins have gone beforehand to judgment and have been blotted out, and they cannot bring them to remembrance. Satan leads many to believe that God will overlook their unfaithfulness in the minor affairs of life, but the Lord shows in his dealing with Jacob that he will in no wise sanction or tolerate evil. All who endeavor to excuse or conceal their sins and permit them to remain upon the book of heaven, unconfessed and unforgiven, will be overcome by Satan. The more exalted their profession and the more honorable the position which they hold, the more grievous is their course in the sight of God, and the more sure the triumph of their great adversary. Those who delay a preparation for the day of God cannot obtain it in the time of trouble or at any subsequent time. The case of all such is hopeless. Those professed Christians who come up to that last fearful conflict unprepared will in their despair confess their sins in words of burning anguish, while the wicked exult over their distress. These confessions are of the same character as was that of Esau or Judas. Those who make them lament the result of the transgression, but not its guilt. They feel no true contrition, no abhorrence of evil. They acknowledge their sin through fear of punishment, but like Pharaoh of old, they would return to their defiance of heaven should the judgment be removed. We should now acquaint ourselves with God by proving his promises. Angels record every prayer that is earnest and sincere. We should rather dispense with selfish gratification than neglect communion with God. The deepest poverty, the greatest self-denial, with his approval, is better than riches, honor, ease, and friendship without it. Though enemies may trust some in prison, yet dungeon walls cannot cut off the communication between their souls and Christ. One who sees their every weakness, who is acquainted with every trial, is above all earthly powers, and angels will come to them in lonely cells, bringing light and peace from heaven. The prison will be as a palace, for the rich in faith dwells there, and the gloomy walls will be lighted up with the heavenly light, as when Paul and Silas prayed and sung praises at midnight in the Philippian dungeon. God's judgment will be visited upon those who are seeking to oppress and destroy his people. His long forbearance with the wicked emboldened men in transgression, but their punishment is none the less certain and terrible because it is long delayed. These plagues are not universal, nor the inhabitants of earth. These plagues are not universal, or the inhabitants of earth would be wholly cut off. Yet there will be the most awful scourges that have ever been known to mortals. All the judgments upon men prior to the close of probation have been mingled with mercy. The pleading blood of Christ had shielded the sinner from receiving the full measure of his guilt, but in the final judgment, wrath is poured out unmixed with mercy. In that day, multitude will desire the shelter of God's mercy, which they have so long despised. Behold, the day cometh, saith the Lord God, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the word of the Lord. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from north even to the east. They shall run to and fro, seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is the shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler, and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. The heavenly sentinels, faithful to their trust, continue their watch. Though a general decree has been fixed, the time when commandment keepers may be put to death, yet their enemies will in some cases anticipate the decree, and before the time specified will endeavor to take their lives. But none can pass the mighty guardian stationed above every faithful soul. Some are assailed in their flight from the cities and villages, but the swords raised against them break and fall powerless as a straw. Others are defended by angels in the form of the men of war. In all ages, God has brought through holy angels for the succor and deliver of his people. Celestial beings have taken an active part in the affairs of men. They have prepared, clothed in garments that shone as lightning. They have come as men in garb of wayfarer. Angels have prepared in human form to men of God. They have rested as if weary under the oaks at noon. They have accepted the hospitalities of human homes. They have acted as guides to benighted travelers. They have with their own hands kindled the fires at the altars. They have opened prison doors and set free the servants of the Lord. Clothed with the panoply of heaven, they come to roll away the stone from the Savior's tomb.